Well, I think it's been a couple months since we finished up the fuel pump upgrade on the Z4. So we upgraded the fuel pump with Precision's Raceworks 2.5 version fuel pump upgrade, which we had to kind of take apart the original fuel pump and upgrade that. But we were left off with the stock top hat, which I didn't want to use. I just wanted to wait on Precision Raceworks to come out with their billet top hat. So after a few months, they finally came out with that.
It finally came!
It was just in time for Black Friday, so I got a good deal on it and it came. So I'm gonna show you guys what that looks like and what it comes with. It looks like we're gonna have to do some wiring both on the front and the back side of the top hat in order to get it to work with the Z4. And it doesn't come with instructions, but we're gonna figure it out on our own. It shouldn't be too hard. But yeah, I'm really excited with this, and I wasn't really expecting it to come out so soon, but I'm glad that it did. Here is how it came. So there was a bit of confusion on their end, only because it just came out, and that's my thought on it. I was told that it didn't come with any lines or any fittings, and look at here, there's some fittings, and they sent me AN6 line, which I was not expecting, so I went ahead and ordered some fittings and fuel line because they told me it wouldn't come with it, but whatever, it's all good. Here it is. This bag is labeled top side harness and bottom side harness on this bag. So I believe that this is the bottom side of the billet top hat and then the top side of the billet top hat that we'll have to wire in. So we'll get more into it, but I'm coming in with zero knowledge on doing that. I'm sure it won't be too bad to figure out. It seems pretty straightforward, like I said before. I'll go ahead and unwrap this and kind of show you guys what this looks like. And here we go. Here is the billet top hat. As you can see, we got the wiring for the bottom and the top. And then a Micron fuel filter built in on the bottom side here. And I believe, I'm not 100% sure on this, but after some research, I believe that there's a regulator built into this. And the regulator is a 6-bar. This should also, well, obviously will handle an upgraded Walboro fuel pump, which is the one that we put in the Z4. So even if you are not doing port injection and are just upgrading everything, this should be able to be used as a plug and play option once you wire it in. As for me, I'm going with the Nexus Motorsports port injection kit, so I am not going to be using direct injection. The fuel lines are going to go straight to the fuel rail for the BMP manifold that I have yet to install. So we'll get into that more later. As for now, you can see that there's only 2 wires here for the bottom side and the top side. And then on the harness, there are many more wires on it, which I believe will have to be wired into the original plug on the gas tank side and then on the outside of the gas tank side. So let's see what we do with that. After some further research, I found out that these exposed wires are just extra, and they're mainly to be used with a secondary pump or other aftermarket accessories, which I won't be using. I'm going more so the plug and play option, which you will see me do. So what I did is I just zip tied them to get them out of the way, as you can see here. And we're gonna move on to kind of starting off with the top harness connection. So where it will plug on the outside of the gas tank, just because I don't want the fumes going everywhere, and this is enclosed and it's winter right now. I wanted to at least get that side done today. So as you can see here, like I showed you guys, these are labeled. This is the harness that's going to connect to your vehicle's original harness. So we're going to have to cut that up and connect to it so that we can use this connector to the top side. And then once I get a little familiar with that, then I'll go into the inside of the gas tank and do the bottom side harness over here that will connect to the bottom of this. But once again, you'll have to wire this into the original connector that's inside the gas tank, if that makes sense. As for this part, this is also more OEM connections. So the hoses, you can see they're two different sizes. Those will connect right up, so there's no modification on that. The only modification that we're doing is the wiring into the OEM harness. All right, guys, so I already started on this connector and finished it. I'll break it down for you guys, but basically what happens here is the old connector branches off into two areas. So you can see we have the power and ground over here. They're the thicker wires. And you can see how they oriented in the plug here. But then we also branch off into here. And obviously you do have to pull back this plastic covering here that protects the wires. Same with up here. I had to cut that and peel it back in order to access those wires. I'll also go ahead and show you guys the old plug. So here you can see the old plug that I just clipped it and kind of referenced the wires, the way they were staggered and how they were placed in the connector here. You can see. So the only thing different really that you can't reference from the old plug is you can see that instead of the ground being on the top right on the old plug, it's on the left on the new plug. So those two wires kind of switch over. You can see how they connected here into the OEM wiring. So brown to black, red and white to red. So those two kind of flip-flopped. But as for the bottom, you can follow that reference here. The two green ones and then the two black ones. And then they go into these here. The more solid colors have a stripe on them. So you can see over here we got red with a black line, black with a brown line, black with a red line, and brown with a black line. So you can see red with a black line went to green, black with a brown line went to black, black with a red line went to black, and then brown with a black line went to green. So that's already there. And if you're wondering about these connectors here, they're a newish style of connectors where they have solder in the middle. I can link those in the description if you want to try these. I'm not going to go ahead and clean this up and make it all look nice like OEM because honestly, guys, I don't really trust these connectors quite yet. I've never used them before, but I wanted to take a gamble and try them. So I'm going to leave this like this until I'm ready to kind of test out the car and make sure that everything's working properly. Otherwise, I will switch over connectors. But these seem to be nice because you still get the connector style, but you're also using that solder to really get the best connection when you're doing this. But yeah, we're done with this connector. So the outside connector that's going to plug into the top of the billet top hat. Now we're going to go in the gas tank, remove the pump, take that out, and start working on the connector that will splice into the fuel pump inside the gas tank. And that will plug into the bottom of the billet top hat. So I'm going to remove the lock ring, remove the old OEM top hat here in white, and start working on that. Here I have taken out the fuel pump that's been upgraded to the 535 and the connector for the billet top hat for the bottom side here. So as you can see, I have clipped the pump, red and white wires, and stripped them back. Same with the float wires right there, green and black. They're also stripped. And then the old connectors right here. You can see the colors on that. That's been clipped off. The other connector that connects to this one, so it kind of slides in there. You can see the open slot on the right. That's still in the fuel tank because you can't take that out. So we left that in there. We just have to wire these first. And here I got the connector. And then this sheathing was on the old connector to kind of protect the wires. So we will be reusing that. What I did is I grabbed the power and ground, and then the 2 green wires, and zip tied them together so I can get it through this and then slide that on, and then we will start wiring these in to the pump here. And we'll be left with 2 extra wires over here, 2 black ones that will connect to the other connector. So we're going to have to cut that other connector once we get down there and wire these 2 last black wires into it. So before I wrap this up here and clean this up and just kind of make it look OEM again with these newish connectors, so I wanted to explain that pretty self-explanatory. Red wire goes to the red wire on the pump, and black wire goes to the white wire on the 535 pump. And then you have the 2 green float wires. I wired those in to the float on the pump. So both green ones go to the float on the pump. Doesn't matter which one goes to which. You can connect them either way as long as the 2 green ones are on the float for the pump. And we're left with these 2 wires here, these 2 black wires. I left these 2 wires outside of this wire protector because these are going to be wired into the other float that's still in the tank with the connector. So we're going to have to cut that connector off and then wire these 2 wires into those float wires. So I'm going to go ahead, clean this up, and then I'll show you guys once I'm done wiring these 2 in. We have the pump cleaned up here, looks like OEM. We have the protector all zip tied in, and then the connector here. So it's time to throw this back into the gas tank underneath and wire these 2 wires in like I mentioned before. I just wanted to mention that I also replaced this O-ring. While you're down here, you might as well just replace this. I can include the part number so you guys can find it. So that is also replaced. So now we're going to join these 2 remaining wires that are float wires to these 2 wires here that are also remaining from the other connector that stayed in the tank. So we'll go ahead and join those and we should be finishing up here. Here is the end result of the harness that's going to be on the inside of the tank. So you see I cleaned it up. I have this covering my connections along with Tessa tape, which is the same thing that I did for the fuel pump back here. So this is how it looks, and it's ready to plug into the back side of the billet top hat from Precision Raceworks. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and put in the top hat and connect this harness along with everything else. And the connections are gonna be exactly the same as the OEM one that we threw away. So in the beginning of the video, I mentioned how these only go one way because one's bigger than the other. And then the 2 line connections. The white Walboro pump line here will go to the front line here. And the joined connector of the pump and across the fuel tank here that's joined together will go to the rear one here. So you can't really mess that up. We'll go ahead and connect everything. And that is it, guys. The lock ring is on and tightened down. You can see that when you install the billet top hat, it only goes on a certain way because there's a little notch on the top. And here's the plug. And as I told you guys before, I'm still going to leave all this wiring kind of exposed just in case these connections suck and I have to redo these. I will be able to just redo them right away and not have to strip them down again. Otherwise, this will plug in here. And then if you're going the OEM route and not upgrading your fuel lines, you will use this and plug in your OEM fuel line here. But I'm going to be upgrading my fuel lines due to going ethanol, so E85 fuel. I'm going to use AN lines and upgrade those. So I'm going to leave it off here just because it branches off into different types of work if you're going the OEM route or the AN route. So as for you guys, everything should plug back in like normal. and then you should be able to run the car, because this is a OEM plus upgrade more so, unless you add on aftermarket accessories, which is what this was for, but we just zip tied those away and off to the side so they wouldn't get in the way. But that's it for down here. Well guys, that does it for this upgrade. The billet top hat is done, and if you guys have any questions, let me know down below. And if you guys want to follow my fuel line upgrade, I'm going to be including that in the Nexus port injection video that's coming up next. So I'm going to be doing the Nexus port injection. We'll be doing the fuel lines in that video, just because it makes more sense to include the fuel lines in that video and show you guys how that lines up to the manifold and the rail with the port injection. But I'll catch you guys on the flip side.